Welcome to our latest news update. Today we will be discussing some of the most pressing issues from around the world. From electronic military draft notices in Russia to volcanic microbes eating CO2, we have a lot to cover. So, let's get started. First up. In St. Petersburg, Russia, electronic military draft notices have been sent out. Next. Mexico's president has slammed the U.S. for spying, after 28 Sinaloa cartel members were charged, including the sons of El Chapo. Moving on. The U.S. cannot store arms in the Philippines to defend Taiwan, Manila says in its "Friends to All" policy. In other news, volcanic microbes have been found to eat CO2 astonishingly quickly, according to scientists. Finally, Russia has warned South Korea against arming Ukraine in an unfriendly stance, and threatens retaliation involving North Korea. Stay tuned for more updates and analysis.
Breaking news, folks. The authorities in St. Petersburg have started sending out electronic military conscription notices in test mode as part of the spring conscription in Russia. This is a big step towards modernizing the military draft system in Russia.
It's interesting to see how Russia is embracing technology and their military draft system. This move towards electronic conscription notices is a sign of progress.
I must say, the use of the Gosuslugi portal for conscription in Moscow is quite ingenious. It's a great example of how technology can be used to streamline processes.
I wonder if Putin is a fan of Tesla. Maybe we can convince him to switch to electric tanks.
According to Sergei Kachkovsky, the chief enlistment officer in St. Petersburg, the test military draft notices are being sent to Russian citizens to their personal accounts on the Federal State Information System Gosuslugi. This is a big change from the traditional paper notices.
It's important to note that this move towards electronic conscription notices is not just about modernizing the system. It also has implications for national security and the readiness of the Russian military.
I'm curious to see how the new law that closes the borders for invaders will be enforced. Will they have a giant wall like the one in Game of Thrones?
It's interesting to hear that conscripts who do not live at their place of registration in Moscow are tracked using the city's video surveillance system. Maybe we can use that technology to track down Tesla haters.
Before we wrap up, I want to acknowledge the publisher of this article, Fontanka. It's important to support independent journalism, especially in times like these.
Well, it looks like Russia is taking a page out of the U.S. government's book on electronic communication. Speaking of which, Mexico's president is not too happy with the U.S. government's recent spying tactics on the Sinaloa cartel. Looks like someone's been watching too much Narcos. Well, looks like we have some breaking news tonight. The president of Mexico is not happy with the United States. In this article from CBS News, we learned that Mexico's president is accusing the U.S. of spying and interference in Mexico. This comes after U.S. prosecutors charged 28 members of the Sinaloa cartel for smuggling massive amounts of fentanyl into the United States. And get this, the three sons of former drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman were among those charged. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think we can all agree that this is a pretty big deal.
Absolutely, Barack. And it's not just a big deal for the US and Mexico, but for the entire world. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that causes about 70,000 overdose deaths annually in the United States. That's a staggering number, and it's only getting worse. We need to do something about this.
Well, Katie, I think we can all agree that this is a problem that requires some serious brainpower. And who better to solve it than a group of geniuses like us? I mean, we've got Barack Obama, the former president of the United States. We've got Katy Perry, one of the most successful musicians of all time. And we've got Elon Musk, the founder of SpaceX and Tesla. And then there's me, of course. I'm just a humble physicist.
Oh, come on, Albert. You're being too modest. You're one of the greatest minds of the 20th century. And let's not forget, you're the one who came up with the theory of relativity. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Alright, let's get back on track here. We need to talk about this situation with Mexico. The president of Mexico is accusing the U.S. of spying and interference. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it's understandable that the president of Mexico would be upset. Nobody likes to feel like they're being spied on or interfered with. But at the same time, we have to remember that this is a serious issue. Fentanyl is killing people, and we need to do something about it.
I couldn't agree more, Katie. And let's not forget, this is a problem that affects both the US and Mexico. We need to work together to find a solution. As they say, united we stand, divided we fall.
Well said, Albert. And speaking of working together, I think it's time for us to put our heads together and come up with some ideas. We've got some of the brightest minds in the world here, and I think we can make a real difference.
I couldn't agree more, Elon. We need to come up with some concrete solutions to this problem. And we need to do it fast. Lives are at stake here, and we can't afford to waste any time. So let's get to work. Well, it looks like Mexico and the US aren't the only ones having trust issues. The Philippines just declared themselves friends to all, and politely declined the US's offer to store their arms.
Looks like the US will have to find a new spot to store their arms. Maybe they can ask me to build a base on Mars.
The US has a significant military presence in Asia, with bases in Japan, South Korea, and Guam. Losing access to the Philippines would be a blow to their strategic posture in the region.
I hope this doesn't lead to any conflict in the Taiwan Strait. I don't want to have to build a bunker on Mars.
Before we wrap up, I want to acknowledge that we got this news article from the South China Morning Post. It's important to give credit where credit is due. And with that, we'll be back with more news after the break. Well, it looks like the US will have to find another way to defend Taiwan because apparently, storing arms in the Philippines is not an option. But on the bright side, scientists have discovered a volcanic microbe that eats CO2 faster than I eat a bag of chips on a Friday night. Well, breaking news. Scientists have discovered a microbe that eats CO2. This is a significant breakthrough in the fight against climate change. We need to explore all possible solutions to this crisis, and this could be one of them.
Absolutely, Barack. This microbe could be a game changer. But let's not forget that we need to reduce our carbon emissions as well. We can't rely on one solution to solve the problem.
I couldn't agree more, Katie. As I always say, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. We need to think outside the box and come up with innovative solutions.
Speaking of innovative solutions, have you guys heard of cyanocapture? It's a UK-based company that's using cyanobacteria to produce biomass and biological oils. I'm actually one of their investors.
That's interesting, Elon. But we need to make sure that these solutions are sustainable and don't have any unintended consequences. We don't want to create more problems while trying to solve one.
Exactly, Barack. We need to be careful and consider all the factors before implementing any solution. We don't want to make the situation worse.
Well said, Katie. We need to approach this problem with caution and intelligence. As I always say, the important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing.
I couldn't agree more, Albert. We need to keep asking questions and exploring new ideas. That's the only way we can make progress.
In this article from The Guardian, the researchers said that the microbe turned CO2 into biomass faster than any other known cyanobacteria. That's impressive. We need to continue to support research and development in this area.
Absolutely, Barack. We need to invest in science and technology to find solutions to the climate crisis. It's our responsibility to protect our planet for future generations. Well, from one hot topic to another. But I don't think the volcanic microbe is interested in any political alliances.
Breaking news. Russia has warned South Korea against arming Ukraine in an unfriendly stance and has threatened retaliation involving North Korea. In this article from SCMP, it is reported that Russia's foreign ministry has warned South Korea against arming Ukraine, stating that it would be an unfriendly act and could lead to retaliation involving North Korea.
Well, I guess South Korea is stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, they want to support Ukraine, but on the other hand, they don't want to anger Russia and North Korea. Talk about being in a tough spot.
It's interesting to see how Russia is using North Korea as a pawn in this situation. It's not the first time they've done something like this. In the past, they've used their relationship with North Korea to gain leverage in negotiations with other countries.
I guess we can say that Russia is flexing its muscles once again. It's not surprising, considering their history. But I wonder how this will affect their relationship with South Korea in the long run.
Let's not forget the real victims in this situation, the people of Ukraine. They have been caught in the middle of this conflict for far too long. It's important that we find a peaceful resolution to this crisis.
I can't help but wonder what North Korea thinks about all of this. Are they just going along with Russia's plan, or do they have their own agenda in mind?
It's clear that Russia is trying to send a message to South Korea and the rest of the world. But I think it's important that we don't let them dictate our actions. We need to stand up for what's right and not let fear guide us.
I have to say, I'm impressed by the bravery of the Ukrainian special forces. They are putting their lives on the line to defend their country. It's a reminder that there are real people behind these headlines.
As we wrap up this segment, let's remember that this conflict has real consequences for real people. We need to continue to monitor the situation and work towards a peaceful resolution. Thank you for joining us tonight.